I love it. Oh my God.
All right. So we're going to do this podcast. This is SPAR's Better and Better podcast.
Nice.
And for the month of September, it's Realtor Safety Month. So it's all about a safety awareness, kind of remembering and reminding all the realtors. So today with me, I've got Danae from Valley Self-Defense.
Yep.
And we're going to really talk about personal safety.
Yep.
As we both know, realtors have a dangerous job. They're going into homes they don't know with people they may or may not know. So they're putting themselves at risk voluntarily every single day.
Yep.
And then beyond when they're not with people, because they're putting themselves out there on social media, definitely. So let's just jump into it. So some self-defense.
Yeah.
So what do you want to talk about first?
So I actually I've worked with a number of real estate agents, both like through groups and with, people who came in personally, especially after something had happened. And I think the biggest thing that, we always talk about with all groups, right, is intuition. And very specifically, I'm thinking about a story that happened with someone at, she's at a larger agency, and she got a message, and the message said, hey, my partner and I would like to have a female agent. And she said, well, that's not, terribly uncommon. Like there could be reasons for that. But then the next thing they said is, could you please wear a skirt? And
that's awkward.
And she said,
that's odd.
Absolutely not. I am not going to do that. And so obviously things like that are like super red flags.
A little bit.
Super red flags, right? So like someone says like, could you please wear a skirt? I'm absolutely not going to be taking this person as a client.
Yeah. Indulging the female, I get that.
Right.
Telling me what I should wear now.
Right. Yep. And so that's like super. And then I had another person who she was showing, it was an open house, and she was in there, and this man, she just felt something was off, right? She just felt something was weird. And what she realized after was the man was closing certain doors. Oh. Yep. So that she only had like one route of escape. And she, some of it was subconscious and some of it was like consciously, she went and opened up all those doors again. And she wouldn't let him get behind her and kind of all these things. She reported it to the police and found out later that this was a person who essentially stalks agents at open houses, right?
Yep.
And so after that, she had, Googled and found us, and we did a number of self-defense things with her. And so I had a student just recently tell me, and this is scientific, you can Google it, that humans can actually smell fear.
Really?
Yeah. It's not like, oh God, that fear, that fear smells, but it's a pheromone and it goes straight to your gut. So when you have that gut feeling, that is scientifically, that is actually you smelling some sort of pheromone, right, in the air. And so, especially if you're raised female, we have this terrible thing, right? You don't want to cause a scene. You don't want to be seen as rude, right? There's a list of reasons. And typically if you're raised female, it's very much like, I don't want to be seen as this, that, or the other thing, right? And so we stuff that down. And that's societal, right? That is no one's fault. That's how, we're raised essentially to like have those, like I sit here and tell you to listen to those alarms when society has told you your entire life that no, those alarms are wrong. You're just crazy, right? And so, and I say this as personally, like I've spent all of my Krav Maga life saying to myself, no, you're not crazy. You're not X, Y, and Z. Like this is your body telling you, listen. And even if you're, quote unquote wrong, because I've had people, ask me that question, well, what if you're wrong? Well, if you've avoided some sort of situation, you weren't wrong.
Right.
And we also have to keep in mind, like, If you've experienced trauma, like we were talking before, I lived in Jerusalem and I lived, in technically in a war zone. I had hypervigilance for a long time, right? Yep. But that's your body working to protect you. So I try and be like, you're never wrong, right? If you feel that cross the street, don't take the, don't allow the person in. It may seem, rude by society standards, but the best way to win a fight is to avoid it.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And that's what we tell everybody. A lot of people are like, you're here to teach me how to defend myself. Of course.
That is a defense.
That is a defense, right? We always say the first thing you should do is avoid. If you can't avoid, that's when we come in, right? And then we have literally a list of like steps you can take, depending on distance, depending on what weapons you have, depending on what's even just around you, right? Like all of those types of things.
Yeah. Yeah, the gut feeling is, I mean, we all say it, we all know it, we repeat it all the time, but and I think about, the whole Minnesota nice.
Yes.
And it's a little detrimental to that. Yeah. And we are so, and women definitely, but anybody, we're so worried. And I think, especially with like realtors, you're worried about your professional image.
Oh,
and
God,
so we're worried to our own detriment of what others are thinking of us and what image we're putting out there. And, and you have to remember, you don't want to do it because you're going to think they're thinking you're rude, but you don't actually know what they're thinking. Yep. And everybody has their own histories and their own battles and their own reasons for the reason they do things.
Yep.
I could cross the street and you might think, what is she doing? Or you might not even realize that I've crossed the street because of you.
So anything you can do, like to feel out, like, am I uncomfortable? And to ask yourself, like, what's the reason for that? One book I highly, highly recommend is called The Gift of Fear by Gavin DeBecker. And it's super awesome. And it essentially is like, we are actually hardwired to see the red flags. And I will just let everybody know it does start with a sexual assault. But the woman had come to him and said, what could I have done differently? Oh. And he literally just listened to her story. And as she told her story, she picked out all the red flags. He didn't say a thing.
Oh, interesting.
Right? She picked out all the red flags. And so the book is really about, we already know them. How do we pay attention to them in the moment? And how do we listen to ourselves and let ourselves be seen as rude?
Instead of thinking back, think in the moment.
Think in the moment.
Yeah.
Yep. And one of the things that we typically say is if someone is viscerally angry at you, like swearing at you, calling you names, saying all this stuff, you've probably caught them in something. So we say, that's what we say. And one of the big things that I see constantly is saying, well, I don't want to make him mad, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to make him mad, which is totally fair, right?
Yeah. The fear is you're going to make it worse.
You're going to make it worse.
Right.
So typically what we say is if it is a good man or like a rule abiding man, or, we'll say woman, but if we're honest, most attackers are male.
Right.
Unfortunately, we'll say if they are a good person with good intent, there's very little that you can do that's going to make them attack you. Where if this is a person with bad intent, there's very little that you could do to not.
Sure.
Right.
They already have that mindset. They're going to do it.
They're going to do it. Right. So you setting a boundary isn't necessarily going to stop them.
Sure.
Right. Where if it's a good person, you setting a boundary should be like, oh, I'm
right.
Oh, I'm sorry. Like I didn't realize So, that's the one really big thing I want to tell people is like setting a boundary, right, is such an important thing, right? Which once again, I'm real bad at. Like I've been conditioned over 30 something years, right? And now I'm trying to set those boundaries. I'm real not great at it, but I'm working on it.
Yep.
And so setting a boundary with somebody, if they're a good person, right? If they don't have bad intent, they're not going to attack you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
So how do you feel about, so this is one place where I always, I want to use them, but so I have I walk my dog.
Yep.
So many dog walkers.
Yep.
Listening to music. Like they're walking and listening and, you're doing it. And all I can think of every time I think, yeah, I'm going to do that. I'm going to put my tunes in and go for a long walk. And I put them in and then immediately take them back out and go, as much as I want to listen to music, I won't be able to hear if somebody's behind me. And that freaks me out.
So let me tell you a story about why I only listen to music with one
is you can hear. Okay.
Yep. I was in my early 20s, and I lived in Manhattan. I lived up in Harlem, and I was getting off the train at 135th Street. So there were two stations. If I got out at 125th Street, I had a longer walk, but it was on busier streets.
Okay.
And I wanted a shorter walk. I had a 1 block walk, or kind of more of a 1 block, but it was much quieter.
Okay.
And so I was getting off of the train, and I felt something hit me from behind, and I turned, and I kind of gave the evil eye to this guy behind me.
Like,
right?
how dare you? Yeah.
Right? And I think what had happened was it wasn't like he was like he had thrown something.
Sure.
Okay. So I'm walking down the street. I have both my earbuds in. Or, God, what at this point in time it would have been the wired, right? And all of a sudden I hear.
Oh.
I pull one out and I turn and look, and I can tell that he's stopped.
Oh.
Okay. So I'm like, oh no.
Oh, like
and
he's running after you.
Like he's running after me. But as soon as I turn, he stops.
Yeah. Okay.
And so I can't remember if I put it back in or what, but I'm starting to panic. I'm starting to panic. I'm moving faster, right? I turn around and then all of a sudden I hear, and I turn back again, and he is closer. Oh. And so I am just like, okay, what do I do? Right? This is 10 to 15 years before Krav Maga, right? This is, I am young, I am panicking. And so I get to a junction where there are stores, and I run into the shop, and I run into the back. And he's standing at the door.
Oh.
Waiting for me. Yep.
Oh, wow.
Yep. He's standing at the door waiting for me. And I wait. And I'm like, oh my God, what do I do? And I waited 5 minutes, and he waited out there for a good period of time. And then I stepped to the door of the shop. I looked around the corner, and he's walking away. And I literally ran across the street, and I was only about a half a block from home. And I was on the phone with my husband, like just sobbing and being like, I'm going into our apartment. I'm locking the door. From then on, I was like, I'll
walk longer.
I'll walk longer out like busy street, like more lights, more people.
Yes.
And I know I still listen to music for for me, it really is
it's soothing.
Right?
Yep.
But I'm only going to have one ear closed, right? I try not to do, I have like the noise canceling headphones. I try not to do noise canceling.
Yep.
I have the volume down, and at any point in time, if I'm uncomfortable, I automatically just take them off.
Yeah.
So that's like that's my kind of very intense story.
And
but
that's kind of how those are the things that go through my mind, and just, going on long walks. I don't know who's behind me.
Absolutely.
I mean, obviously I don't have eyes in the back of my head, contrary to what my mother used to say. But
right.
But so because I can't see behind me, you're reliant on your other senses and ears, obviously trying to hear footsteps. But, if I'm listening, jamming out and, pumping, going crazy, but I can't, it starts to worry me. So I will do one or none.
One or none. Yep. And I like to tell people, a lot of times I find, and I feel the same way. Like if I think somebody is behind me, I don't want to turn and look, right? I want to pretend like it's like nothing's happening. Turn and look.
Doesn't bother me.
Right?
Yeah.
I absolutely turn and look. I have turned
Do
oh, absolutely. I have turned and looked and now I've seen you, right?
Yes.
So if you had any ill intentions, I've at the very least seen your face. So I'll turn and look at people, right? I'll stop and let people go past. That's one thing that I've really started to do a lot since I started Krav Maga is that I will stop and let you go ahead of me, right? I would, if I'm anxious that you're behind me, I'm going to stop. You go. I can tell it makes people uncomfortable sometimes.
Oh, sure.
Right. But
because then they're weirded out that somebody's behind them.
Oh, absolutely. Or the fact that I like stopped and I'm staring at them.
Oh, sure.
Right. Like either or.
Yeah.
But I'm very much like, I will stop. I will look at you. I will actually like turn to people and what's up.
Yeah.
Like, hey, what's up?
Hello.
Head nod.
And that kind of brings us back to what people think of you, because I can distinctly remember a couple times, going on a walk and, solo and seeing somebody and stopping and then feeling like, okay, they probably think I'm weird that I just stopped. And so then I had this horrible, not really horrible, this weird sensation. I'm like, okay, well, I need to have a reason that I have stopped. So I'm going to tie my shoe even though it doesn't need to be tied,
Right.
And like to do something so that I don't seem odd.
Yep.
But then immediately thinking, what do I care what they think of me?
Right.
But it's like a practice of, I have to keep telling myself, it doesn't matter what other people think of me. I'm doing it because I want to stop.
Yep.
But yeah, so I had to have an excuse to stop. It was strange feeling.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
This is right before I became a Krav Maga instructor. I was in a pool at my apartment and the man walked in and he looks at me and he goes, "We've met before. What's your name?" And I said, "Danae." And then I was like, I don't know him.
Yeah.
I've never met him before. So
Dang it, why did I say my name?
Right?
Yes.
It's just such a natural response. Right. So I'm in the pool and he gets in the hot tub. He starts asking me questions. And what I realize is he's trying to figure out where I live in the building. He's like, "So do you face Target or do you face right?" Like, and so I live in a complex. So I didn't actually live in that building. And I lied, right?
Of course.
Like you do.
Of course I would.
Right? Like, oh yeah, I face this way. And then he asked the question that every woman fears. Do you live alone?
Yeah, great.
Right? And I was like,
nope.
What? I was like, no, I live with my husband and two cats. I can't remember, whatever. The cats were very important to the story at the time. But then I stayed in the pool and I was like, I'm going to stay here because I don't want him to think I'm rude.
Yeah, or that he made me uncomfortable.
Or that he made me uncomfortable.
I'm bigger than that.
Right?
Yep,
And like I think about this years. I use this story a lot in like women's classes because I always want people to know, like, yes, I've been trained in Krav Maga, like I'm almost an expert now, and I still fall into these old patterns because they're so ingrained in me.
Yep.
And I really have to sit and think, like, who cares? Yeah. Let them yell at me, let them swear at me, but it's still hard and it's still, right? If there's a reaction from somebody, I still, I still have that like anxiety.
Yep.
But I'm more likely to tell women now, if you're walking down the street, right, and somebody yells at you, like sometimes ignoring it actually makes the person do more. So I'll turn and look and like nod at the person. And sometimes that'll actually
like acknowledge them.
Yeah, acknowledge them, and then they're less likely to keep screaming at me.
Sure.
At the same time, right, that makes some people uncomfortable. It's a hard thing to, right?
Yeah,
I typically
there's no one de-escalation.
No.
That works for everybody.
Ever. No.
Right, yeah.
God, I wish there was.
Right?
It'd be great.
Magic button.
If there were, right? Well, one, either I would be like, have a ton of money or I'd be out of business. Right?
Well,
and I'd much rather, very honestly, I'd much rather be out of business. So
not needed would be wonderful.
That would be great.
So do you what's your advice for self-defense weapons? Because I know we get that question a lot with our realtor members.
Yep. So I know we were talking before we started. I never want to tell somebody, no, you shouldn't carry this.
Yeah.
What I like to do is I like to give the pros and the cons of everything and then tell you what I carry on a daily basis. So the most common thing that people typically have is pepper spray. And I was telling you a lot of stories. Like my class, we've accidentally pepper sprayed each other and we were outside in the wind and all of a sudden the wind changed and the pepper spray hit us. Right. And one, good to know what pepper spray feels like.
Sure.
Two, also shows you that, you know, if you're using something like that, you may end up in...
You're going to pepper spray yourself.
You're going to pepper spray yourself.
Yeah.
And so keeping in mind, if I have pepper spray, where am I using it? When am I using it? How am I using it? One of the other things about pepper spray that I also like to keep in mind is as you get more and more afraid, your IQ actually goes down, right? And you lose manual dexterity.
Yes.
A lot of pepper sprays require you to do a flip of the thumb or use your thumb
to press. Yep.
Exactly.
Yep.
And so oftentimes what we say is absolutely, if you want to carry pepper spray, please do so. Practice. Anything you carry, practice with it.
Yeah.
Because that's another big question is what if he takes it from me?
Oh, yeah.
Right? What if he takes it from me? If you know how to use it, it'll be very hard for him to take it away from you.
Oh.
Right? So that's one thing that we tell people. So one of the things, so I'll go through kind of everything.
Right. Because that is a thing that they say, if you're going to choose pepper spray, there's the potential that they could take it from you and spray you.
Yep.
Which would also spray them. I mean, so inevitably, if you're going to choose pepper spray, you have to almost guarantee that everybody in the room is going to be pepper sprayed. So you included.
Yep. The other thing, and I know I told you I have a friend who she pulled her pepper spray out, and I looked at it and it was taped.
Yeah.
And I said, why did you tape it? And she said, I didn't want it to go off in my purse. And I'm like, I get it. I totally get it.
Extra seconds that's not going to save your life.
Well, and like, okay, I've taped it. Well, now how do I undo the tape? I have to peel it, or I have to have a knife on me so I can undo it.
Right.
And I was like, oh no, like you need a different weapon then. A lot of times people ask us about birdies or those alarms.
Yes.
So one of the things that we want to keep in mind,
ear piercing. Yes.
Ear piercing. Yep. So if you have a hearing attacker, I would highly suggest putting it up to their ear, right? Yeah. Because the decibels are so loud. Right. But if you're looking for it for, neighbor, like
alerting other people,
they sound too much like car alarms.
No, sure.
Right? And we've been conditioned.
We all just ignore those.
We all ignore car alarms, right? So I'll typically
Unless
say...
it's going off for a while, and then I'm like, is that my car? No.
Is it my car, right? Yeah. So I typically tell people, like, if you're going to have either a birdie or an alarm or even a whistle, you're going to want to actually be close to the person for the ears, right?
Gotcha.
Tasers are a good scare weapon. I have a taser at the gym that I turn on and will buzz.
Sure.
And it's an intimidation.
Yeah.
But once again, you need to be close to that person.
Yep.
Right? Unless you have one like, the cops have where it's like a gun and it shoots. Yeah. I don't know about the legality of those in the state of Minnesota.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm not sure about that. But if you have something like that, right, you also have to think about it's bulky. Where do I carry it? Will it fit in a purse? I'm not going to lie. I wear yoga pants like daily now. Like one of the, COVID gave us very few good things, but for me, it was like yoga pants every day. Yeah. And, so that's another thing I think about is what can I carry and where?
Sure.
We do often give people, those little cat ear guardian angel wings. We give those as a gift, kind of as a thank you. Those things are good. Once again, it's a close range weapon. Knives, same thing. I used to carry a knife on me all the time. I was sitting in Zoom meetings and I would flip it open, I would close it, flip it open and close it, right? I wanted to know that I could...
Real comfortable. Yep.
Yep, that I could pull it out and use it if I needed to. But as time went on, I started to think could I stab a human if I needed to, right? And Peter and Shelly, my other co-owners, they're both absolutely. A lot of times, what we'll say is, if you have to do it to save your life, then
it could happen.
It could happen. But when I think about it, I'm like, If I'm not sure, then maybe I need to think about a different weapon.
Well, and like you said, your IQ goes down. So will you be able to
open
consciously, I mean, even if you've got the muscle memory of open close and you're holding it in your hand, you're going to freeze at some point.
Yeah. Yep.
Just instinctively, you're going to freeze.
Freeze is my natural. Yep. Freeze is my natural. Freeze and fawn.
Yeah. Will you be able to unfreeze to do the stabbing motion, right? So
Yep.
Before they take it from
before
you.
They take right? Like, so
yeah.
I actually brought the two things that I carry with me. Now, everything that I've talked about right now is not TSA friendly. I'm just going to say that.
Yep.
So then this one thing I'm going to talk about is also not TSA friendly. So I actually carry an expandable baton.
Oh, like the police officer kind? Oh, yeah. Very nice.
So this is actually the keychain version of it.
Okay.
So here, do you want to hold it? I always
it's heavier than
yes,
okay,
everyone tells me that. Everyone tells me that.
Wow.
So I actually have, this is a 12 inch. I have a 12, 16, 21, 26, 36. And a lot of it's just to show people, right? Like here are the options you have. I prefer the smaller one. One, I can carry it in my pocket.
Yeah.
And also the 16-inch one fits in my winter coat, right? Stuff like that.
Yep.
So another story. I love stories. So I was in the St. Paul Skyway. I used to work in Lower Town, and I was walking, and this man was looking at me. I'm by myself. He's by himself. I assume he's going to ask me for money. I look at him. I'm about to say, I'm sorry, I don't have any change. And he goes, these abortion-having, gay-loving. And I'm like, this is what we're doing here today. This is what we're doing. Okay. And he goes, that's why we have to kill all the white people.
Oh, my goodness.
And I said, all right. So I actually had the 16-inch baton on me. It was in my pocket.
Yeah.
So I actually, the first thing, like I said, and like I tell everybody, the first thing you want to do is avoid the fight. So I start walking faster.
Sure.
Okay. And he is screaming at me as I walk. Now, if you know anything about the St. Paul Skyway, it's vastly different from Minneapolis, and there aren't a lot of exit points.
Yeah.
So the point I'm at, the only exit point I have is a parking garage. And I'm absolutely not going to exit a parking garage.
Right.
But what I realize is he is never getting closer. In fact, he's getting further away. So he's yelling at me, but he's never getting closer.
Yeah.
I had pulled the baton and I had it in my hand.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons I like the baton, right? One, it's an intimidating sound.
Yeah.
Two, typically when I give it to women and they open it, they stand up straighter and taller.
Sure.
Right? And so for me, any self-defense weapon you're going to carry, I want you to be confident with it. It's a easy motion. I don't need right.
It's easy. It almost gives you that little bit of confidence, like, because we're all familiar with police officers having
Absolutely.
it. So you have almost that, instinctive.
I was gonna let you. I was trying to get it to close so you could open it. Sorry.
You almost have that instinctive little bit of extra power, confidence that you might need.
Yep.
And then I like it because everything else that we've talked about so far is very, very close contact.
Yep.
You got to be real up on the person to defend yourself with that weapon.
Yep.
Versus this gives you a little bit of range.
That's what I like about it is I have so much more distance. And so, but I do want to keep in mind, like, I can't take this to the armory, to the state fair, to the TSA. So I was actually very proud of myself. Normally my anxiety goes super up, but with the baton in my hand and this guy following me, like, knowing my Krav Maga and knowing I could stand my ground, I was like, I felt good.
Got this.
Right? And I was like, yes, oh my God. But I'm going to show you the weapon that I carry literally everywhere. And the thing that I like about it is that we all know how to use it. It's a tactical flashlight. So with a tactical flashlight, you can get them in varying sizes and varying lumens, right? So this one actually has a relatively quote unquote low lumen, right? I have one that's a little bit bigger and it's 1,000 lumens. So when I flash that in your eyes,
blinding.
It's blinding, right? But the thing that I really, really love about flashlights is that they're multifunction, right? If I have it up on my head and I go to look at you, right?
Yeah.
And I look in your eyes.
Yeah, you're still blinded.
Blinded.
Yeah.
Right? If you're getting close and you're blinded, I can actually kick or hit you to get myself some distance and to get away. we like to say that the edges of this, we call them a DNA collector. So you can say,
because they're like scalloped or whatever.
It's scalloped, so you can hit someone, right? A DNA collector, right? And you know, if I'm outside and I feel anxious, I had a situation. There was a lot of construction around where I live, and there weren't any street lights. And I was walking, and there was a concrete barrier in my section, but someone was walking towards me, and there was no barrier there. And I could tell it was a man, and I got super anxious, and I just pulled my flashlight out and held it in my hand. And they saw that I had something in my hand, and they literally crossed the street.
Yeah, because they don't know what it is.
They don't know what it is,
now
right?
They're worried.
Right? Which I was like, that's fine.
Yeah.
So I swear to you, I've purchased hundreds of these.
Well, what's great about it in the world of real estate is every realtor needs a flashlight when they're doing, showings, and they almost all use one. So what better self-defense weapon?
Right. And my other thing is you already know how to use it.
Yeah.
Right. It's not like you have to, with everything else, you have to I need to try it. I really need to get that muscle memory. Like you already know how to use a flashlight.
Right.
So literally people, all I have to do is do this.
Yeah.
Even without people doing that, if I do this, right, like it's automatically going to flash in your eyes. And so I typically will say my baton is for if I'm walking around, or we were talking earlier about walking in like Minneapolis.
Yep.
Say I'm walking in Minneapolis, but I don't have to go to First Avenue. I'm just at a restaurant or something. Like I have my baton in my pocket for those reasons. But if I'm going somewhere, First Avenue, the Armory, I'm going to the State Fair, this is something that you can take with you everywhere.
Sure.
I've taken it on airplanes and airports. Now, say you don't carry anything. We actually have a number of self-defense weapons on us. Liquid is a weapon, right? What we typically tell people is that the first person to the eyes wins, right? So throwing coffee, if a house has been staged, if you've got vases, if you've got, big decorative things, like those are absolutely always weapons. My mother loves crystals.
Oh, yeah.
So she gave me this big, like, rose quartz crystal.
Of course.
And the first thing I did was I was like, this is a great weapon. And I was like,
I'm sure she was proud.
she's like, that's my Danae. Yeah. I was like, I know. I was like, this is a great weapon. And it's very sharp on the edge. I was like, I could literally, someone comes at me, I could just lob this at them. I could hit them with, it was like, I could knock someone out with this.
Yes, you could.
So what do you have around you that you could absolutely use as a weapon?
Sure. Yep.
So that's kind of my, like, things you can throw. Yeah. Like I said, anything sharp, anything that's going to go, your natural reaction, something to your eyes.
Yeah. Eyes. Yeah, absolutely. Blinding.
Yep.
I have, so my husband and I both have flashlights that we carry. I mean, we've got a dog too. So Minnesota, 6 a.m. and 6 p.m, half the year is very, very dark. So taking
3 p.m.
And I have a black dog, so it's great. So we both have flashlights, and what's so funny is, so his is 1,000 and mine's 800 lumens.
Nice. Yep.
And a little bit bigger than yours. Good. It's got good weight on it. It's got a great DNA collector. But what's so funny is when we go outside, I've got the dog and I've got the flashlight in the hand. So, and I've got my keys, and I hold my keys such that it also is a weapon.
Yep.
And I've got the flashlight and the leash in the other hand, and I'm kind of like lighting up the ground for the dog, but then periodically like looking around because I am always aware of who's near me.
Yep.
So the first time my husband got his flashlight, he went out and he said, my flashlight lights up the whole freaking neighborhood.
Oh yeah, 1,000 lumens is amazing.
He went around the corner and he could see down the block.
Oh yeah,
like, this is beautiful.
It's amazing.
Nobody is sneaking up on you with that flashlight.
Never, which I love.
Yes.
Now the one of the reasons I like this is it just takes a AA battery.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think my 1,000 lumen one takes like, they're like the CR123 or whatever, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And so that's another thing to keep in mind when you look at your flashlight. What batteries does it require?
Yeah.
Because I have another one at home that I'm like, oh, this would be a better one for me to carry, and I have to find the batteries.
Yeah.
I did just get one that is actually rechargeable. You
Yes,
plug it
that's
in.
what mine is. Yep.
Yes. So I just got one that's you plug in, which is super nice. So there are so many options now. Like I always recommend like 511 to people, and I send people like lists and stuff. But a flashlight is a great weapon.
Yes.
And like I said, you already know how to use it.
Yep. And I love that. And you can hit it twice. It does the like strobe light thing.
Yes.
I mean, so already the light's going to blind you. And then you add the strobe to it. It's very disorienting. I've blinded and disoriented myself when I'm like looking at it. Oh yeah. Okay. That works.
Some of them you can do straight light, strobing, and then some of them actually do SOS.
Yeah, my third one is a slow SOS blink.
Is an SOS, yep. So, which is pretty awesome. Now, granted, how many people know SOS? But you know, you like to think
law
like
enforcement, maybe,
right? Maybe at least a few. Yeah, right. Something. So, yeah.
Yes. Oh, so I know this podcast episode will come out after, but you are coming back tomorrow to do a safety self-defense workshop with us.
Yes. Yep.
So what are some things that we're going to cover in that?
So real estate agents already know a lot of the like general safety rules. So typically what I do is I'm going to be like, okay, so we're going to do punching and kicking, right? Everybody, like super important for everybody to know. I've done things like, how do I make distance? I've done, somebody asked me one time, all right, I'm backed into a corner, especially thinking about basements. How do I get away from a person, get back up the stairs? Typically we do how to defend against slap. What if somebody chokes you? But what I tell people nowadays is I have a set intro to self-defense that I can teach you. Some workshops we go through and we do everything.
Okay.
Some workshops, we do punching and kicking, and then we go off the rails because people ask questions. Which is valid. I will always stop a workshop, and if you have questions, like I'd much rather go over like if you've had a situation, if there's a situation you're anxious about, like we'll just go completely and do whatever people have questions about. So I actually really love when people ask questions because I can say, all right, so let's talk about that. What would that look like? And how can we help you in a situation where you have a lot of anxiety for a while, and maybe still now, but for a while, a lot of people ask about what do I do about carjackings? Right?
Yep.
What do I do if I'm in or around my car?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So then I'll say, all right, so we're going to stop what we're doing right now, and we're going to talk about cars. Like, I've had people be like, all right, we're just going out to the parking lot and here are all the things you could do. Like literally, like here's what you should think about around your car. Here are decisions you should make. Because typically what we're going to say is give them the car.
Right.
Give them the car.
Yeah.
At the same time, I'm also...
That's what they want. They don't want you. They don't really care about you.
Nope.
Yeah, they just want the car.
At the same time, if you have something of value and importance in the car, we're not going to tell you don't fight. Obviously, if your child's in the car or a pet or like
don't
something like that.
Right?
Yeah. But we also, a big thing for us is like allowing people to make their own decisions about what's important. Because if I'm never going to poo poo and be like, that thing's not important that's in your car. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we'll always be like, look, the first option is give them the car. But I don't know if you saw in the news a little while ago, somebody broke into someone's car and stole their mother's ashes.
Oh, I didn't see that one.
Yeah, it was in, I think it was in Uptown.
That's a weird thing to steal.
Yeah, they probably thought it was something else.
I mean, I hope so.
I would hope so, right? And so like there are certain things that we keep in our cars that like mean a lot to us, right? First thing, absolutely give them the car.
Yep.
But if there's something that you need to keep in the car, like then we go over stuff like that. We've done active shooter situations. Like we really we want people to feel empowered in their everyday life. My goal is never to teach out of a place of fear. in my mind, teaching out of a place of fear is just going to make it harder for you to remember. Right?
Yeah.
So typically we do punches, kicks, how to defend against a choke, how to defend against a slap. Those are kind of our most common things. But then people say, well, what do I do in this situation?
Yeah.
Then we just
Something they've been encountered upon.
encountered or really thought about. And I always think about, like, unfortunately, as people raised female, we're part of this like kind of unlucky group where either something has happened or you anticipate something will happen, right? That's typically how, unfortunately, we live our lives. And so I never want to say you should be afraid of this. We already are.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We already have that. What I want you to think is, like, now I'm giving you already technically have all the tools you need. I'm just going to tell you what they are and remind you of them. Yeah.
Okay. And as you've already mentioned before, practice. Everything is practice.
Everything is practice, and it's hard, right? Because a lot of times what'll happen is I'll see people once for 2 hours and never again.
Oh, I'm good now. I took my workshop.
I did my workshop, right? And and so really what we say is if, and honestly, I did the same thing. I was like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this self-defense. So I'm going to do this Krav Maga for a couple weeks, and then I'm going to be good. And then I just felt so confident that, like, I became an instructor. I'm now a gym owner. Like, this is almost my full-time gig, right? So, like, for me, that empowerment and that confidence was so important that I stuck with it. But really, if people are going to come, if you want to practice, I know this is going to sound weird. Almost all of our instructors will tell you that we practice in the shower. Yeah, I know. Like, which is just one of those things, like, I have the brain space to, like, practice my punches, practice my kicks. Every once in a while, there's a spouse who's willing to do it. I have people who buy punching bags, right? So they can continue to practice. But really, the more you practice, the more muscle memory you have. I spar a lot with one of our co-owners, Peter, and he's a big dude, and he would just take me to the ground.
But you need that for practice.
Right, for practice. But and he'll tell this story to just about anyone, right? I would hit the ground, I would freeze. Right? Because my body was like, what is happening and what do I do?
Right.
Right. And the longer I've done it, the more I hit the ground and I immediately react.
Jump back up.
Right. And then do something to defend myself. And it's just because I've practiced. I also always hate, like, being like practice, because it sounds like I'm like, yes, like the quest for more money. But really, the more you practice, whether it's with us, with someone else, with a spouse, with a friend, the better off you're going to be in a situation.
Certainly.
The better off you're going to have that muscle memory.
So it didn't happen to me, but we used to have an instructor that taught a safety class. And I remember one of his stories was after one of his classes, he had a female agent who took his class, felt great about, just gung-ho, ready to, like, take on self-defense, right? And did the whole workshop with him and went home and was just so excited about the things that she learned, and went home, told her spouse, I took this self-defense. I am ready. I can do this, blah, 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 right? So... And she said, so I need to practice, because that was the thing.
I think I know where you're going.
And so the husband said, yeah, no problem. So she said, will you practice with me? Yep. I want to implement some of the things and show you what I learned today. Yeah, no problem. So had fake, like, rubber knives or whatever that they were going to practice with. And she knew it was coming. I mean, this is staged. Come at me, run at me. I'm going to do my thing. And she froze and couldn't perform the things that she had just learned that very same day. And then got mad at her husband because, well, you didn't do it right. Well, no, because the attacker's not going to come at you a certain way. Everybody's different, right? And so it was a little bit, and so she came back, felt just essentially demoralized because she thought, well, I had learned all this stuff, but I couldn't actually do it. And then the discussion was, okay, what else do you need to learn? Because that was not it. And you can't just do it one time.
Well, and there's a couple things there too, right? Right. There's a couple things with that. It's her spouse, right? So that's a big thing with me is, like, part of the reason, my friend Peter, like, the co-owner, he and I work together a lot. And it's to the point where I know like what I can and can't do to hurt him. Right. Now he's wearing groin protection. A lot of times we're wearing gloves. Sometimes we're wearing headgear and mouth gear. Right. So we have protection. So one of the things to keep in mind is a lot of times if you're like working with a spouse, like, do you actively want to hurt them?
Do I want to punch him in the face?
Do I want to punch him in the face?
I want to practice.
Right? I want to practice punching in the face, right? And so keeping in mind that sometimes when it's people we love, it's really hard to do.
Oh, certainly.
Right? And the other thing is a lot of times what I'll say is a lot of times we really want to practice it at full force when really what we need to do is practice it as slow as we need to, right? So what we typically say at our gym is slow is smooth, smooth is steady, steady is fast, right?
Okay.
If I've practiced it, say in this group tomorrow, and I've done it at like 10% speed, and then I have someone running at me, like at home, I'm absolutely not going to be able to do it, right? So really what it is that you want to say, okay, we're starting it at 10%. Now I feel comfortable at 10%. I want to go to 20%, right? So I would never tell somebody like, okay, you now can do this at 100% if we've been doing it at 20%.
Got this. Yep.
What we typically do in a Krav Maga class is we practice. We ask people to bump up the speed. And then by the end of class, what we do is we do a drill where we get you tired, we get you confused, or we get you dizzy, right? And then we ask you to perform the technique.
Oh.
Yep. And then we'll say to people, did you perform it perfectly? And everyone will say no.
Yeah.
Right? And then we'll say, that's not bad. Because, right, we added some sort of stress or anxiety. Like we added something and you did the best you can. Now we need to come and keep practicing, right? Keep practicing until it's that muscle memory.
Yeah. It's definitely more realistic with the stressor.
That's kind of the goal. And really a lot of times what we'll say is we're going to teach you, and if you can do it 100% on our mat, you might do it 60% in a real life thing, right?
Sure, yeah.
What we're looking for is that you save your life. We don't care if it's perfect, right? Like on the street. But I can totally understand. Like I've seen that, and it just breaks my heart.
I know.
It breaks my heart because I want to say like, so I have my motorcycle. I rode my motorcycle here today. When I got my motorcycle license, they said, congratulations, you can ride your motorcycle in a parking lot. It's literally what they said to me. Literally what they said, right? Because now you have to be able to practice it out on the street. Now you have to be on the highway. Now you have to do all these things, and there are other people around. And so
that's a lot of unknown factors.
There's a lot of unknown factors. And so I always want to say to people, like, we absolutely want you to come and learn self-defense. And we want you to take your time and be as comfortable. We'll push you a little bit. But to jump from that to that is a big leap. And I can totally understand.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
I felt bad for her.
That breaks my heart.
It was good that she realized. Immediately. Okay. Yeah. Yes. You learned some fundamentals, but you haven't actually put them into practice yet. You've absorbed them in your brain.
Yep. Absolutely.
So, yeah.
And honestly, and I find this a lot for people who were raised female, getting it sometimes from your brain to your hands involves a lot of talking and processing, myself included. And so a lot of times I teach our women's class on Saturdays, and a lot of times people will be like, well, there's not a lot of working out in this. No, because there's a lot of talking. We're doing a lot of talking. We're doing a lot of processing. We're like, what happens if this happens? What happens if this happens? But also saying like, okay, the attack looks like this. Let's do this over and over and over and over and over until you feel comfortable. Then we can maybe add some more speed, add some more stuff to it. I never want to set anybody up for failure, right? It's a hard thing.
So from your experience, is there a too young or too old to learn any sort of technique as a realtor member?
No. So I actually teach our children's class as well. So I teach 5-year-olds. So
I bet that looks super cute.
Oh my God. Yeah. When they're looking at me and paying attention. Right. I actually love it. So I teach anyone ages from 5 to, I think our oldest student right now is in their mid 70s. Okay. So we teach everything. And what we do is we modify, right? So based on, what you can do, right? Who you are, what your situations are. So I've have plenty of people who are like, I actually need a knee replacement. All right. So are we going to kick or knee at all, or you really just want to use your hands?
Right.
If you really just want to use your hands, then I'm going to give you more weapons that way. And I'm going to give you a couple other ways to surprise somebody. I've had people who are holding a baby. So, okay, so we're going to hold, I actually have CPR CPR babies. So we're holding a CPR baby.
Yeah.
Well, now all you have are your legs. So we're going to practice as many kicks as we can and how you can do it fast enough that you can get away with your child.
That is awesome. So you're really setting it up for all scenarios.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. So at Valley Self-Defense, we really believe that self-defense is for everyone. Everyone. So we've had deaf students. We have people who come to us with like pretty severe trauma. We have people who are neurodivergent and on the autism spectrum. And so what we do is we really work on how do we modify what we do for you so it's the most effective thing that you can use?
Sure.
And so, like I said, like holding babies, people with knee replacements. In self-defense, there are really no rules. Right. So how do I show you what dirty fighting looks like too? I spit. God bless Peter. Peter has put up with a lot. I spit in his face. I pull his hair.
Oh, wow.
Fingers up the nose.
But that's reality.
That's reality. I mean, that's self-defense.
A bad actor is not going to play by any sort
rules.
Of script. Like, I'm going to come at you face on and no.
Oh, absolutely. We always do that. So we do what we call the timeline of self-defense, and we do it with a choke, right? So someone is like very far away to someone is on you on the ground. But to do it from very far away, essentially the person goes, I am going to choke you. Right? Like, and then you're like, yeah, I'm going to go a different direction. Right. And then we progress it until the person has like knocked you down and you're on the ground.
Right.
But yeah, very rarely is someone going to be like, excuse me, I'm going to choke you.
Yeah.
I'm going to choke you here.
Please start your self-defense.
Right?
Yeah.
And then when you think about children, we teach children in two different ways when it's child against child versus child against adult. And so we modify that as well, because you can't really teach a child to kick another child in the crotch on the playground, right?
No.
But if it comes to an adult, like we need to do something vastly different, right? And so it's always about modifying like what somebody needs to help them in their current situation.
Sure. Yep. That's awesome.
Thank you.
That is awesome. So anything else you want to kind of tips for realtors that we haven't covered today?
One of the things I do want to mention, and I'm going to try and do it carefully. Do you have an Android? So I have an iPhone, and I've asked a certain person to call 911 before. And the thing is that if you have your phone set, it will do it. And so I have to be very careful because I've accidentally called 911 multiple times. So, hey, call 911 and it will do it. Now, on an iPhone, I know this because I accidentally called 911 on my motorcycle.
Oh, oops.
Oops. If you hang up from 911 and you do not hit a certain button, it will actually send your location to your emergency contacts and tell them that you have called 911 and this is your current location. Which was something I found out and very quickly made all of my family members panic because I couldn't turn it off. I had gloves on. I very much think that like as much as you can use the technology that we have, and then other things. I feel like real estate agents already know like don't like let them walk behind you. Don't let them come down the stairs behind you. But I think the biggest thing is that you have all the tools you need to defend yourself.
But your gut. I mean, you got to listen to it.
Listen to your gut as much as you can. And like when there are red flags, that's not you being rude.
Yeah.
It's not you being
don't dismiss them.
It's and that's such a hard thing,
it
right?
Is hard,
And I also want to keep in mind that if you're thinking about reviews and things like that, typically if somebody is a bad actor, they're not going to leave you a review.
Yeah.
Now, if someone was odd, right? And maybe a bad actor and they leave you a bad review, you can always respond and be like, hey, like these are the situations that made me feel uncomfortable. And so for my own safety, right?
Yeah.
Because as a gym owner, right, I'm a small business and there are things that I've been like, God, I shouldn't have
done that.
I shouldn't have done that, but I want the review.
Right.
Right. And so keeping in mind that, and if it's, you said no to somebody who asked you wear a skirt and they leave you a bad review, you can actually report that to Google.
No. Yeah.
Right. You can report that and say, this person actually never.
Yeah.
I never interacted with this person.
Yeah.
Different things like that. But it's so hard when it's your livelihood. It's your, right. It
is. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And as a realtor, you are your own business and every interaction is a potential paycheck. And I get that. And unfortunately, for too many people, that's the focus instead of your safety first or your client's safety first.
Yep.
And that your life is worth way more than the potential commission could
Absolutely.
ever be.
Absolutely. And that's something we tell to everybody. Like if someone asks for your wallet, give it to them.
Yeah.
Now, granted, we say throw it so that you can run the opposite direction, right?
Exactly.
But your being is more important than your stuff. Now, like I said before, in the Skyway, my intuition didn't go off, right? So one of the things I tell people is that listen to your intuition as much as you can, but know that if you don't know what it's saying, it's not your fault. I will always, 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 if you are attacked, it's never your fault. Ever. Because, we get people who come in who are like, well, I should have done this, I should have done that. No, the person who attacked you shouldn't have done it.
Right.
Right. And so I will always, always, always tell people that. And sometimes people have said to me, well, that saying that you should listen to your intuition kind of feels victim blamey because then if you didn't, it's your fault.
Yeah, I get
right?
that. Yeah.
So what I typically say is I like to think about my intuition as a friend. Do I always know what my friend is telling me? No. Every once in a while, my friend will say something and I'll be like, that's what you meant? I totally didn't get it. Or,
I ignore my friends.
I ignore my friends. Yeah.
I know that's where you're going.
Right?
Yeah, I sometimes ignore my friends.
Right. So know that even maybe you felt that something, maybe it just didn't know what it meant.
Yeah.
And so that doesn't make it your fault.
Right.
Right. And so those I think are the big things for me is that you have this gift, but you may not always know how to use it.
Yep.
And that's okay. The only person who was ever to blame in this situation is the person who attacked you.
Yeah.
The person who attacked you. Right.
And I think another kind of a struggle in realtors or real estate minds is, when growing up, I was brought up, you dress the part, you dress for success. You know, your image is, you're judged first on the outside and then on the inside. And so when you're trying to be professional and trying to present a certain image of who you are, you're going to dress a certain way.
Yep.
And so for a lot of real estate agents, we see, and I've seen for a long time, you want to show the potential consumer that you are successful. And so that looks like this with, certain clothes, certain jewelry, certain watches, certain cars, whatever. Even though that might not be how you dress day to day.
Yep.
Even if it either presents more success or less success, whatever it is, but because of those images that we're putting out there, which is not bad. I understand the whole, look professional, and we teach professionalism, but there is a give and take for that because now you're putting this image out there and the entire world believes that realtors are rich. And we all know many are not,
Oh God, yeah.
Many, probably make less than I do per year. So it because it's such a hard business, you get what you get out, what you put in, and you're all small business owners and
totally,
so with that image out there, we can't say don't dress that way, but be cognizant of the image you're putting out because, if you are always, portraying yourself in these like riches and this wealth and this success image, that is what people believe. And so bad actors may target you for that reason.
See, and I think, and that could be. I personally think, and now, God, right or wrong, right?
Right.
I think that, most criminals are cowards.
Oh,
right.
Oh, yes.
Most criminals are cowards. And so really what they're looking for is somebody who's alone. Right. So, and it's well known, right? Typically a realtor is going to be on their own. Right. And I would say one of the things we do also, and we haven't done it in a while, but I would love to, is that we do dress for your day self-defense. So if you wear pencil skirts, if you wear high heels are actually a great weapon, right? And so we tell people, dress with what you come with, and we will show you how to defend yourself in that item. I understand, but I totally understand where you're coming from with it.
This weird gray area, it's good.
Yeah.
But could also be bad.
Yeah.
In some ways.
And it's so hard to I never want to say don't wear this or that's flashy or whatever.
Yeah. But to what you do is, okay, well, if that's the image you're going to put out,
let's show you how to
work with it.
Yeah. Let's show you what, or if you're wearing there are actually a lot of ways to use high heels as a weapon.
And it's so funny that you say that because in a lot of self-defense classes, we talk about be aware of what you're dressed in. So the question is, can you run in those heels? Well, most women cannot.
God,
but
no.
you can take them off and run,
Absolutely.
right? So you can still wear them.
Yep.
But, be aware that you probably gotta lose the shoes.
Oh yeah.
Even if they're $800 shoes.
Yep.
But then in that same vein, it's not just women, because men wear, great, smooth-soled Italian leather shoes. Those are
so
difficult to run in as well. Very slippery.
Hurt. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And actually with either of those, dragging a heel down someone's shin.
Oh.
Yeah, that's a big one. And it works for either of those. Mm-hmm. Stomping on the top of someone's foot, most
a heel would hurt. Yeah,
most of the small bones in your body are in your foot, and so that's those are a lot of things. We've actually had people take off the heel and hit them in the face with it.
Use it as a weapon.
Yeah.
I could see that.
Yep, and it's just super hard. I feel like the more workshops I've had with people, the more I've noticed that people are wearing flat soles. Yep. Dressing, wearing more leggings and stuff like that. And like you said, I think people are more and more like, what should I wear? Yep. But it's hard, right? Like you said, you're advertising yourself.
You are. Yep. And then, in the whole dress scenario, it's when you said victim blaming with, your intuition, I remember many conversations with women about I must have been asking for it because I was dressed in a skirt and I was dressed in this. And it's like, no. You wear what you want, but you got to be aware of, what you can use, how it may, be perceived. But that doesn't mean don't wear it.
I typically say, I had this really great thought and then I lost it. But I will never, ever tell someone what you're wearing. I got it. So we typically blame ourselves because that's the easiest thing. Sure. I can control myself. I couldn't control the situation around me.
Sure.
Right. So because I can control myself, I shouldn't have done this. I shouldn't have done that. I should have worn something different. So typically what we say in a self-defense situation is as soon as you're out of the situation, you've got about 30 seconds to call. I'm going to say the cops or someone you trust, because after about 30 seconds to a minute, you're going to start blaming yourself for it. Right. And it's never your fault. Ever.
That's why I was interested in the come as you are dress workshop.
Yep.
I think that's really interesting, especially if you do find yourself, your typical go-to as a female is, pencil skirts and high heels.
So
So how do I use that?
Because here's the other thing, we actually do winter wear workshops. My favorite coat is a coat that goes all the way to my ankles. So when I go to kick, I can't, right? So our winter wear, the other thing is you're typically wearing boots.
Yeah.
Right? My boots are significantly heavier.
You're a little more like the kid from the Christmas Story.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So if I've got, these boots on, how am I kicking someone?
Right.
So we actually do a lot of those. I'm glad I said that, because now I'm like, ooh, I'm going to schedule one for this for this winter. But yeah, what do I do if I'm wearing something different? What do I do if I have a backpack? What do I do?
Right.
Like, I carry a motorcycle helmet, right?
Yeah.
So like, there are a lot of situations where I'm not coming, right? Most people come to a self-defense class. I'm wearing leggings. Yeah. I'm wearing athletic wear and tennis shoes.
Right.
That's not how I live my life.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So we do a lot of those situations where I'm wearing a pencil skirt. Okay, what do I do? I'm going to have to hike up the skirt.
Sure.
Right.
You got to be able to move your legs.
Got to be able to move your legs. I actually, a lot of times when women wear jewelry, we're like, perfect. Because then even if you're not going to punch, I actually had a woman, she's like, I wear all rings. Do a backhanded slap and
those
drag.
diamonds hurt.
Those things hurt. Do a slap and drag.
I stab my husband all the time.
Right? Like you have so many things that you can use to your advantage. Yeah. It's just, people say to me, well, why didn't I think of that? I'm like, this is why you're paying us. Right. Like, you're paying us for a reason.
But you have to change your mindset to be able to recognize the things that you can do differently.
Absolutely. And that's, once again, I mean, I've been doing this for years now. It's practice. It's what I do. Right. And so, yeah, I always tell women, right, when they're like, I should have thought of this. Like, no. Yeah. That's why you're here. That's why
I'm thinking of it for you.
Yeah. That's my job. That's why you're paying me. Yeah.
When you mentioned the phone thing, so just one story I will say is, so my previous watch was connected to my phone, and it has a setting on it where you could like press the side button 3 times and it would alert emergency. Or whoever you set up as your emergency contact. Yep. One day coming to work,
I can already see.
So we have alarms. So I was trying to, had stuff in my hand, and I'm in the door, and I'm trying to get the alarm set or code off, and I inadvertently hit the emergency. Well, I didn't know that. I didn't know that I had done it. Meanwhile, I'm also fumbling with the alarm code in this building, and I didn't do it fast enough. And so I'm like panicking that that's going off. And then all of a sudden my phone's ringing, and my husband is like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, why?"
Right?
He's like, "The alarm went off." And I'm like, "How did you know that?" Because I thought he was talking about the building
alarm.
And he's like, "You sent me your picture and SOS, and you needed help." And I'm like, "No, I didn't." And I had inadvertently hit it. So now, because I had it, I used to wear my watch on the other hand. Well, what was happening? The button was where my wrist bent, so it was hitting too much. So I wear my watch on the other hand now, but. And then just last week, so we do Google location sharing between my husband and I. 24/7. He can see where I am. I can see where he is. Yep. He has it set up so that anytime I come or leave this location, it sends him a text. So
nice.
So he knows. Because a couple weeks ago, I was here late. I was talking with a coworker. And so typically I'm home by between 5 and 5:30. Yep. And it rolled around till 6. If I'm not going to be home that time, I usually text him, "Hey, I'm going to be late," or whatever. And I hadn't texted him, and it was 6:00. And he had, my phone was in my office on my desk. Well, I was in somebody else's office talking. And so he had been texting me. He had called me, and no responses. But yet he can see that my map pin has not moved this location. And so he got worried. He drove over here. So all of a sudden I'm talking with my coworker Joe, and I hear this on windows all around the building. I'm like, what the hell is that sound? And I go out, I'm like, hold on, Joe, I hear knocking. I go out front, and I see my husband with his face plastered against the window.
Oh, that's such love.
What are you doing? I open the door. I'm like, what are you doing here? He's like, you didn't answer your phone. I was worried.
Oh, what love!
So,
I love it so much.
he says, he's like, I got my eye on you at 5:30.
Yep.
If I haven't heard from you,
Yep.
something might be wrong.
Yep, we do a lot of that. We suggest a lot of that for people. And I mean, I'll tell you, not only does my husband know my location, but actually my other two business owners do as well.
Sure.
Right. And so I have a handful of people that know where I am at any given time, which like sometimes people are like, really, you're business owners? I'm like, yeah, but they're like, the people
You're
I'm
with them
closest
probably
to.
more than your husband.
Actually, some days, yes. Some days, yes. And so I always say, like, if you have people that you trust, people that you care about, absolutely. Like, hey, I'm going to be home at this time. I'm with this person, like all that stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Because what goes through my mind is we are all such creatures of habit.
Yes.
I mean, I drive. There are two ways that I get home. I either go this way or I go this way. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And so if anybody, why, I don't know, but if anybody were to stalk me,
No,
I have a routine. I mean, I absolutely have a routine. I park
Yep.
in the same spot every time. So it's fairly simple to get me.
Yep.
So at least I have somebody that's watching.
And so actually, I'm going to bring up the book I talked about before, The Gift of Fear.
Yeah.
They actually do talk a lot about stalking situations and stuff like that. It's such a good book. It's a book that, for our women's instructor course, like to become a women's instructor, it's like part of the curriculum like reading this book. And it talks about like things to do in those situations and things that we think about. And once again, noticing that we notice those red flags, we notice them. It's just noting in our minds at the time.
Yeah.
That they're, So The Gift of Fear, Gavin DeBecker.
Awesome.
So good.
Well, Danae, this was an awesome talk. So thank you.
This is fun.
And,
thank you.
Like I said, this will come out after, but we're going to see you tomorrow for self-defense. So for those that are not going to be with us tomorrow, but listen to this later, where can they find Valley Self-Defense if they're interested?
So if you want to find us, our website is vsdmn.com. We're also on Facebook and Instagram under Valley Self-Defense. And we're also on LinkedIn under Valley Self-Defense. So you can find us there. And one thing I always like to tell people, our phone number, it's 651-504-2255. And it accepts text messages. So I know a lot of people are like, I will never call you. I said, you don't have to, you can text us. So find us. We have a couple free seminars coming up. We also teach firearm safety, as well as permit to carry and a number of other things.
And your location, you're located in Stillwater.
We are located in Stillwater, but we do travel.
Okay.
We do travel. So depending on the location, we've done workshops and seminars, both private and for corporates and groups.
So maybe if we've got some brokers listening, they might want to have you out to their office.
Absolutely. And we've had a number of people be like, I have kids. And we've done stuff both in Minnesota and Wisconsin. So
Excellent.
We do travel.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming and talking today.
Thank you. So much fun. Thank you all.